Welcome to our Natural Habitat Adventures webinar today. Step Ashore, Experience Alaskan Brown Bears Up Close, presented by Brad Josephs. Brad is a naturalist interpreter specializing in bear biology and ecology of the North Country. He attended the University of Alaska Fairbanks, graduating with a BS in wildlife biology in 1999. And since then, he's worked on biological research tech on various projects throughout Alaska. He has been guiding for Natural Habitat Adventures since 2004, a self-proclaimed bear junkie. He's also a wildlife photographer and avid traveler and conservationist. And today he's coming to us from the Arkansas Ozarks. Brad, welcome.
Hello, guys. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm going to talk about a trip that's very dear to my heart, and a couple of issues too I'm going to throw in about bear safety, bear conservation, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a little different from last year's, and I added some new pictures that I got last summer, which was one of the most amazing years for photography for me in Katmal. So yeah, we'll just get started. I got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll try not to go too far over the hour mark. There's me in Katmal on the lower right, and then camping in Alaska on the left. I lived in Alaska for over 20 years. Went to school up there, did a bunch of work with the government agencies, and started guiding in '99 for the government, doing brown bears, and been guiding ever since. And I just love bears, and luckily for me, I started guiding kind of as a break from government work and academia, but Natural Habitat started going with me out there to see the brown bears in 2004. So I've been doing that ever since with NatHab, and that's really these brown bears. Although I guide a lot of places now, but the brown bears are where it really gave me my career, and thanks to Natural Habitat, I love them so much. They let me start guiding in Churchill about 14 years ago for polar bears, and doing aurora trips, which I leave for in a couple weeks. Actually, well, yeah, less than a couple weeks. Up in Churchill doing aurora borealis trips, and about 13 years ago started working over in China, doing the panda trips for NatHab, and 3 or 4 years ago started guiding in Borneo, so doing orangutans and learning about that. And so yeah, it's just given me a chance to see everything, and then hopefully, you know, my goal in life is to learn and appreciate all this stuff, have help other people that go on my trips stay safe, comfortable, and appreciate it as well, and then come away with, you know, put a value on these resources for conservation. That's the reason. Like just yesterday, I did a talk for the Audubon Society in Mountain Home, Arkansas, which is where I moved 3 years ago, just because I was tired of Alaska winter, on Borneo, and filled them in on conservation issues in Borneo, and hopefully planted some seeds for those guys. So that's what really it is all about for me. These resources, these animals, and these ecosystems have given me so much in my life, not just a career, but so much just pleasure and fascination, stimulation, really focus my whole life. So what I want to do before I die is to just pay those things back, pay those pandas, polar bears, brown bears, orangutans back for all the great things they've done for me. Let me try to speak for them, and that's what I'll do in the next 45 minutes. So this trip is, I'm going to just talk about the logistics, just so you can understand a little bit, but very briefly. There's all that stuff, you know, all the details of the trip are all very, very well laid out on the website and stuff. So I'm not going to harp too much on that stuff. You know, you can easily check that out. But there's where I used to live with a cursor in Homer, Alaska. Spent like 19 years living there. And then there's Kodiak. And those are the two, when in the later summer we do Homer, and early summer we start in Kodiak. And folks will fly there, which is both easy flights from Anchorage. And that's where the trip starts. And you're greeted by a local guide there that we use, and I won't be there. I meet everybody out on the Alaska Peninsula, but and then we take a 1-hour float plane trip, and this is where the bear viewing, where I'm going to talk about, happens, is on the coast of Katmai National Park. Katmai is a huge national park on the Alaska Peninsula, and but most people go to Katmai, they go on the inland side to Brooks Falls, but this is not, we do not go there on this trip. We're just staying on the coast, which is spectacularly beautiful, not very visited to the extent of other places in Alaska. So it's kind of like still one of the world's best kept secrets. The best scenery and the best wildlife in Alaska, in my opinion, hands down, and also the world. This is kind of a cool overview shot of this chain of mountains, which is the Alaska Range. Actually, it starts at the Aleutian Range here, and it's the second most volcanic region in the world, next to Indonesia. And over here is Homer, and over here is Kodiak. So yeah. So the first couple days of the trip, you'll spend exploring either Kodiak or Homer, which are very different but equally cool coastal Alaskan towns. So you get a real feel for both of those places with our brilliant local guides. And there's Homer. It's arguably one of the most scenic towns in the United States. That's the Homer Spit. I used to have a view just like that out of my window, but moved to Arkansas. It's okay. So the float plane trip out to the boat, which is an awesome boat, and it's not a luxury yacht. It's a work boat. So you're going out into a remote, rugged area that's harsh, and so I think it adds to the experience to be on a boat that was custom built for working out in a place like that, and those kind of elements. It's very, very stable, very wide. I mean, you can't even hardly tell that you're moving unless the seas get super bad, and we don't travel with clients and that kind of stuff. And but when we need to go somewhere, we can get there. We don't have to think about it. This is an awesome boat. It's the Natural Habitat Ursus. It's an ex-Bering Sea crab boat, which has been converted into our expedition vessel. And it's comfortable, it's clean, very, very reliable. And this thing can sit out and not have to, it only has to go to town about once a month to fill up on things like, fuel and stuff. So I think one of the greatest things about this is that, it's got this deck. We can basically have cranes, and we can crane our skiffs on the deck. So nothing slows us down. We've got multiple skiffs on there in case something happens. We can land helicopters on the bow, which is really cool. We do that with film crews a lot that want to get aerial footage of Katmai. And yeah, so it's it's the ex-Time Bandit. So if you guys know about the Deadliest Catch, the Time Bandit's probably the most famous boat in that very, very successful reality show. And well, this was the original Time Bandit. So, but now it's not going after crab anymore. Now it's taking people out to one of the most awesome places to see the most awesome animal in the universe. Inside, it's definitely sort of 70s motif. Classic Alaska, remote. You're in a remote Alaska. There's no need to be on some fancy vessel. It's not a yacht. It's a work boat. And it's cozy and got a lot of character. And that's where we eat and sleep. And the food has been, I've heard many times, the best food anybody's ever had on a NatHab trip. And NatHab kind of prides itself on food. So, that says a lot. So one of the chefs, in fact, is my wife. That comes out for about half the summer. And we've, let's see, last summer we made tremendous renovations to it so that the guest quarters are out on the deck and, in these nice cabins. And you don't have to share bathrooms anymore except for the one couple. So there's basically 4 rooms that are identical. And each has a shared toilet and a shower, and every room actually has its own sink. So that really helps make people comfortable. So yeah, all new, clean. And we have an awesome skiff that takes us ashore. It's a small landing craft. So we can just basically step into the shallow water with our waders and go ashore to do what you guys came for, which is to see brown bears up close, personal, on the ground, eye level. It's as exciting and intimate as any wildlife viewing experience on Earth, and I say that with a lot of confidence and a lot of experience. I've done a lot of things in the world. Nothing's like this. To get shots that at ground level, eye level, not from a boat, not from a platform, not from a vehicle, on the ground, like this, and the mothers and cubs. So I know is that you guys, so you can relax and just enjoy the thing that is going to keep, the question that's going to keep going through your mind that I always have to address, but a lot of times I've addressed it at the end, is this safe? So I'm going to talk about that right off the bat first. There's me and my wife. We didn't approach that bear. We were sitting there, and the bear came up and grazed right past us because we weren't a threat. Is this safe? The answer is yes. I've been doing it for 20 years. It is never had a dangerous experience, and nobody on a bear viewing trip that's been with a guide has ever had a bad experience in this area with a bear. And everybody's been hurt, killed, anything else that's gone with a guide that knows what they're doing. The only guy that did was Timothy Treadwell. It's a long story, but he broke all the rules, unfortunately. But yes, it's safe. And this is going to be a question that it's going to be on the mind of everybody, because bear attacks in Alaska last year made national news. And right before my season started, well, when I flew from Arkansas up there to this is a story to start guiding the trips for the season, there was a woman sitting next to me with about a 5-year-old daughter, and she said, "Oh, are you from Alaska?" I said, "No, well, I used to be. I work up there." She said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a bear viewing guide." She says, "Oh my gosh, you're exactly who I want to talk to." Her daughter had done a Make-A-Wish Foundation thing and I'd won, and her wish was to see bears. So they had made her a trip to see bears in Alaska. And the mom, as she was leaving in June, all over national news was bear attacks in Alaska, bear attacks in Alaska. And because it was a bunch, in a short period of time at the early part of the year. And she said, "Is this okay?" And I said, "Yes, it's going to be okay. As long as you go with somebody that knows what they're doing. And you're not going to be doing anything, and like we're not doing anything that these people that were hurt were doing. A lot of them, most of the attacks in Alaska are people riding bicycles around bike trails around Anchorage, and you come flying around the corner at 25 miles an hour, and you run right into a bear. Yeah, you're going to get hurt. People running, and one of my things is if you act like prey, a bear will treat you like prey. So you never run from a bear. Well, running in bear country is not a good idea. And then the bears that are dangerous are made dangerous by people because we give them bad habits, abuse them. But where we do our bear viewing trips is a totally different situation. It's not like that. So yeah, the president of NatHab, Ben Bressler, basically said, "Hey, can we address this a little bit?" And so I just immediately, the night before I flew out onto the boat to begin, I just wrote an article on the blog that I do. I do a blog called Bears and Beyond for Natural Habitat, and I basically wrote my opinion. So I could do a whole webinar just on that, but you guys are welcome to search that out on the web and see. Just right here on the bottom, it's some real key things that'll keep you safe. And traveling in a group, well, that's what we do. We have a small group. If you want to go around bears, go with an experienced guide or local, somebody that knows what they're doing. Well, that would be the job of myself or our other NatHab guides, Teresa, Justin, Drew. Use common sense, which is what the guide would do, and be respectful. I'll talk a lot about that in this webinar, and then carry deterrent, and I'll explain that. So, but first, what I want to do is just talk about these specific bears. Are these bears in this place in Katmal different from the other bears? I mean, are they just a sweeter bear? No, it's the same bear. Are they nice to people because they're so full of salmon that they don't need to look at people as a source of food? Or no, that's not it. It's because the humans have not messed these bears up. It's a national park. There's no hunting. It's very remote, so the general public doesn't go out there to make a lot of, mistakes by not using common sense, or not using respect, or doing it by themselves and not knowing what they're doing. So, and for years and years and years, it's been like that. But this bear hasn't eaten a salmon since the previous October, and this was taken probably in late June. All she's eaten is sedge grass and clams. The salmon hadn't come in yet. But she's happy, healthy, and we're sitting down in the meadow, and she comes up, and she doesn't care about us because she knows over years and years and years of limited number of people going out there using common sense and respect, that humans aren't a danger. And that is such a beautiful thing, and that's why we're able to do it. And this can really set a precedent for how we treat bears and other wildlife in other places. So a lot of people talk about mothers and cubs. Well, yes, if you're in a place where bears don't like people, the most dangerous thing you can do on earth is get near a mother with her cubs. So don't look at these pictures and want to get your own and go out somewhere by yourself and think that you can do it, because very few places in the world, and Katmal is one of the only ones, humans haven't made bears hate them. Right? Humans haven't made bears hate them. So if this mother thinks that we as a group of people is going to hurt this cub, she will defend that cub with her life. And but they don't, because she knows over years and years and years. Her mother used to hang around people, these small groups of photographers, bear viewers, and that acted respectfully with common sense and knew what they were doing. And there's generations of bears have built up this trust relationship, and it's excellent. And there's nothing quite like it. And the feeling you get in your heart when you can sit there and have a mother bear approach you and do what she was going to do, like graze or nurse or whatever she's doing, and walk by you just as if you're, as dangerous as a seagull, and look at you right in the eyes and trust you with being near her cub. It makes you feel really good. Like this is one place where humans have not messed something up, and that's something that stays with you, in your soul, in your heart. Can these Katmal bears get nasty? Yeah, they're huge. They're immensely powerful. They to things that are a threat to them, but here humans aren't. But if you're another bear and you might hurt the cubs, yeah, you're going to see fury like you've never seen before. So it's the same bear, and that's the point. Is that it's not? I've heard people say, "Oh, the Katmal bears are just like teddy bears." I don't know. There's some genetic mutation. They're friendly. No. They can be ferocious, but not to people, because humans have given those bears respect, and they haven't abused them, hunted them, done whatever makes a bear not like people. But yes, if I was going to run up and try to take the fish away from this bear, there would be a fight, and I would lose. But I don't do that. So this relationship is. It allows us to go out, and basically the bears ignore us because we're boring. We just sit there. We don't compete with them, and to be honest, the bears are incredibly intelligent, and they know, they figured it out, and they can look at us, and I don't know what they think of us, but they know that we like them. They know that we treat them with respect, and they just really are not the monsters that we have kind of made them out to be in other places. The Grizzlies being this unpredictable, bloodthirsty monster that's it's just not like that. And this place right here is where these bears can show their real side. Hey, if you treat me well, you treat me with respect, and you don't hurt me, then I won't hurt you. It's something you don't really forget. And it makes you think a lot about what humans do and whose fault it really is. Another way that I think helps us so much fade into the landscape or build up this trust with bears is by understanding them. And that's where where it goes into, you want to be with a guide that knows what they're doing, somebody that understands those bears for years and years and years. Because a guide knows how bears communicate with each other. They know the language. Bears operate with body language. And this is a great example right here. These are two mothers with cubs. Generally, a female bear doesn't want any other bear near her cubs because she doesn't want to risk it. But, especially these brown bears that are used to being around lots of bears because there's really intense food supplies, like concentrated, they learn how to get along with each other. And they do that with body language. And one example of body language is a bluff charge. And that's pretty obvious what it means. It means back off. I'm threatening you because you're threatening me. But the opposite of a bluff charge is sitting down. It means the opposite. It means I don't really want to get into a fight with you, and why don't we just share this space together and not hurt each other and get along? So as over the years, watching these bears do this, I realized that if I made my group sit down, then it's going to be that much less stressful and quick for us to basically get along with these bears on the ground at close range. And it works beautifully. And that's what we do. I bring stools or buckets and we sit down and we fade into the landscape. And those bears are so smart. They know exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to sit here. We're not going to bug them, approach them. We never approach them we always give them at least 100 yards space. And then we sit down and we don't move. And those bears, if they want to, can come closer. And sometimes they come a lot closer. And we just sit there and we don't do anything. And you do that for 20, 25 years to generations of bears, and something pretty special happens and you can do stuff you can't do anywhere else. But really it's about thinking like a bear and communicating with them on their terms. And that's using the respect. And so bears, those bears we sit down, we're relaxing. We're putting out a good vibe. There's no tension. There's no fear. We're just enjoying. And then the bears see that, and they also just do what they were going to be doing. If they're going to take a nap, relax, they'll even go to sleep next to us. It's great. I remember this is one little experience, one of these thousands of experiences that I've had over the many years that just make me, some of the highlights of my life. It's just things like this. We sat down, there was no bears there, and we sat down and I was telling stories. And then this mother and two cubs appears from a long way away. And then she just slowly grazes her way. And we were very patient, respectful. We didn't get up or get closer to her. We all want to see and get good pictures. But she's just grazing. We just let her do her thing. And she comes very close to us. I'd say probably 30 feet. Looks right at us. And I know this bear. I mean, I've known this bear since she was a cub. So she knows what we like. I don't know how, but she can tell. And she chooses to nurse right next to us. Just rolls over, nurses, and she can hear that we get excited. She can hear the tone of our voice, I think. And she knows. Bears will never lay down and nurse unless they're totally relaxed, because they're vulnerable. They're laying on their back. They can't see what's behind them. So they have to be very, very relaxed. And for her to do that next to our group is kind of the ultimate in a success, getting along with a species. When she got up from nursing, she just looked right at me and said, "That really made your day, didn't it?" Yeah, it made more than just my day. That was awesome. When bears get close, when you're close to a bear nursing, they make this amazing purring sound. It's very loud. It almost sounds like a hive of bees. The cubs when they're nursing. And if you're close enough to hear that, you're seeing something pretty special. Bears make people happy. These bears, it's awesome. And just to the right here, I'd like to introduce somebody that the clients never really get to see and they don't understand. The quality of NatHab trips is world famous, of course. But it's not just the guide. It's not even just the animals. It's the guys behind the scenes. So this is Ann Avellana, and she's the destination manager for Katmai, and Churchill, and some other destinations that she does so much I can't even keep track of it. But yeah, just every day working to make sure every single detail is taken care of. So there's a little shout out to her, who does so much work behind the scenes. And to the left, there's Lindblad, Representative Emily, and she came out to check things out, and we had a good time. Yeah, bears never disappoint. Okay, so that was kind of bear safety. I hope that makes sense. But of course, there's always going to be people that are going to say, I'm not buying that. This guy sounds like a Timothy Treadwell himself. Like, what happens? Is he cocky? Does he think that he can communicate with bears? No. I never get overconfident. I always have a backup. And people say, do you carry a gun? I say, no. Technically, it's legal to carry a gun in the national parks now, but when I first started, it wasn't. So I had to figure out a way to without it. And to be honest, guns are really not a safe thing for bears. They make the people nervous. It's not the point you want to get across. And if you had to use it because something did happen, there's a real good chance you're going to wound that bear. And then things that you would have been able to negotiate it peacefully, they get violent. So guns, in my opinion, are no good for bears. Don't carry guns for bear safety. What do I carry? I carry something far more effective, and it's a marine handheld safety flare. It's something that me and some other guides years and years ago kind of figured out. This is something you have to carry on boats to signal aircraft. It's so bright. And no bear in the world really wants to mess with it. So I'll just show you. Hopefully the internet will allow the video to run. Send this out with the cat. So hopefully you can see that. It's very, very intimidating, and there's no bear on earth that wants to mess with somebody that pulls a fireball out of their hand. So it's I've only had to use them, I think, 6 times. And they were all in the early days before, the bears really got used to people, and it worked every time. In fact, now this video I took in Churchill, it's not snowing like that in Katmai in the summer. But yeah, so I introduced the idea to our Churchill team, and now all the guides carry those in their pockets just in case something happened with the polar bears. Just in case that video didn't load for you or whatever, there's just a little still frame of these flares that we use as a backup defense. And we never have to use them, but they're always ready just in case. So yeah, safety is very, very important. In the past, I kind of just blew it off and said, yeah, nothing's ever happened. These bears are fine, and let's look at pictures. But I wanted to just give a little more detail this time of why. So just to summarize, I don't carry a gun, I carry something better. Those bears are not dangerous to us because they don't think we're dangerous. From 25 years of using respect and common sense. And as long as you go with somebody like myself or Teresa or Justin or Drew that knows what they're doing and has a lot of experience, you don't have to worry about it. You just enjoy it. Okay. So we're out there hanging around the bears in their backyard. Okay, is this ethical? Like, are we really doing those bears any good? I mean, I'm sure the people are happy, but I mean, should we be bothering the bears in order to get good pictures and get good viewing? Well, ecotourism can save a species or it can kill a species, depending on how you do it. You got to do it responsibly. Responsible ecotourism is one of the keys to conservation because we put a value on that animal and that resource, a value, an economic value that stands up to, that will, make a point to any administration, any government, all over the world, whoever it is. It's money. As long as you do it responsibly, with respect and common sense, you can do good for these bears. And my number one thing out there is keeping people safe. And of course, it's easy. It's not hard to not get hurt by a bear. out there. It's not hard at all. You'd have to be really, I don't know, I don't even know how you would even get one of those bears doing something to you. You have to try. Yeah, so I just kind of lost my train of thought there for a sec. But we need, I think every time someone comes out here and has an experience like this, or gets images like this, I think it does bears in general something like really good. We need to give these bears a chance to let their good side show, to make people fall in love with them. So of all these years and years, this bear viewing has developed. And when I first started, it was basically non-existent. And then since then, now it's a huge thing in Alaska. It's such a huge thing economically that, it's always my dream that other areas will be managed like Katmal. And I think hopefully in the future they will, because we're teaching the world a lot of lessons. Look how amazing this is. Look at these experiences, these pictures. Look how happy these people are. Look how many people come up and that's their dream to do this. This is something that's just happened in the last 20 years. Let's use what we've learned, and because what we need is somebody that loves bears. What you need is an army of people who love bears, because bears need help. They need a lot of help all over the world. Every bear in the world needs help. Now these bears in Alaska, they need help from areas that are not protected, like Katmai, from something that I've always hated more than anything, which is the trophy hunting of bears. And I think that the more we do bear viewing and the more people that love these bears, and the bear photography gets more and more and more popular, then the people that go out there and instead their big thrill in life is to shoot one, rip its skin off, take it home and hang it on the wall, that starts to become not so glamorous anymore and more brutal, and slowly goes out of style. So I love hanging around those bears. I mean, I see they have their own unique personality. They're just fascinating, awesome animals. And why anybody would want to take that life just for the thrill of it is just unacceptable to me. So a lot of my life has been devoted to basically trying to make that not a cool thing to do anymore. Trophy hunting, it's not like subsistence hunting, harvesting deer or whatever for food, or being close to nature as a sportsman. And I mean, that stuff, I mean, I value that stuff, and I really do. But people don't eat brown bears. They just kill them because it makes them feel tough, and then they get a skin trophy. And that's something that's left over from Manifest Destiny, when we Europeans conquered the North America. And it's something that's like locked down in our tradition, and it's deep in our veins and stuff, I guess, as a country. But we can mature, we can change, and I think the bear viewing has done huge things to make trophy hunting of bears not as popular. So I'm not a fan of it. And every time I make somebody smile with a bear, or I don't make them, the middleman, allow it to happen. And I got one more person who joins the army of people that are like, don't do that. So why not do it? I mean, how many bears do you need? Obviously, well, one of the things let me just add to that a little bit more. This is a real trophy, a picture like this. How much more skill, courage, patience does it take to sit and get a picture like this of a giant male brown bear looking at you than it does to shoot one from 150 yards away? But I know I'm preaching to the choir. But my point is, okay, why else are bears important? You may look at it as, well, they just eat salmon, or they can be a nuisance or a threat, but not if you treat them well. But what the other thing is, they're very important as engineers to their own ecosystem. I call them very, very good stewards of their own ecosystem. And they recycle nutrients from the marine into the terrestrial. So they eat salmon, and then they go poop in the woods, and it fertilizes the land and makes the whole land more productive. Bears also symbolize wilderness, and I think that's very important. It's hard to put into words of why, but bears symbolize wilderness. And all I can say, that my only example is just when you look at the mountains of the Canadian Rockies and their grizzly habitat, it has more power. When you walk in there, it's more power. It's an electric feeling that some people may not be into, but for me, it's the most amazing feeling in the world to be in the presence of something that's more powerful than you, that humans have not eradicated or beaten. That's wilderness. Like, what is wilderness? Wilderness is scary. Wilderness is a challenge. That's the definition of it, if there was. And when you have bears, that to me is the ultimate in having true intact wilderness. The mountains are powerful with bears in them. So bears are, and the World Wildlife Fund, their strategy in helping to conserve the wildlife and ecosystems of the world is to make people fall in love with big charismatic animal that everybody loves. I mean, I do a lot of work with frog conservation in Arkansas, getting people excited about not using pesticides and chemicals and trying to, stop the mass extinction of frogs in the world. It's kind of hard to get people, there's many people excited about frogs. We try, but with bears, it's easier. Bears are funny, they're beautiful, they just captivate us. So they're like an umbrella species is what you call them. And if we choose, yes, I want the bears around because they're the coolest animal. They're my favorite animal. Also tigers or pandas, elephants, orangutans. Everything else in the ecosystem is going to be protected. And so you don't have to go sell somebody on the importance of protecting this certain minnow that lives in the creek. You got the bears there. If the bears can be there and we manage for the bears, conserve the bears, that whole ecosystem must be intact. So this army of bear viewers, bear lovers in Alaska specifically, every place I guide has its own. In Borneo, it's the palm oil, and in Churchill, it's talking about climate change and global warming and stuff. But here, there is a serious battle that's been fought, and this is one of the greatest successes that these bears could enjoy, I guess, at the expense of us going out and taking pictures of them. It's this was awesome because this was one of the coolest things. Is there's a show called Wanderlust by Bill Weir, and I'm a huge fan of Bill Weir. He's an amazing guy. He's a really good guy, and he travels the world and basically tries to educate people on issues, conservation or whatever it is, to try to conserve things. And it's one of the best shows out there. It's the best show out there if you like travel and that kind of stuff. It's anyway. So he came out, and what he wanted to do was talk about something called the Pebble Mine. He didn't like the Pebble Mine. Pebble Mine is a fight that Alaskans have been fighting for probably over almost 15 years now. It started as a small idea and then it just got bigger. And we defeated it. The people of Alaska chose salmon resources and wilderness over billions of dollars worth of gold. And we won. The Barack Obama administration and EPA uses the Clean Water Act, said, nope, we're not going to do that. You're not going to have a giant open pit gold mine at the headwaters of the salmon streams that is the whole salmon resources that humans obviously use for a lot of ways, and for the bears and all the other creatures in this ecosystem. Because what you do with an open pit gold mine is you get all this toxic tailwaters, and I mean it will poison the headwaters. I don't care what those guys say will or won't happen. It will. It always has in history every time they've done that. And it's just not worth the risk. I don't care how many billions of dollars. So Bill Weir did a show on this, and it's definitely the best show that you can watch to get. And it's a shocking scenario. But it's in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, so most of the United States never even heard of the Pebble Mine, but everybody in Alaska has. Well, we beat it, and we didn't have to talk about it anymore. It was done, and it was a huge victory. Well, there's a new president now, and he switched the EPA around, and they've opened it back up, and we need a lot of help. We need more help than we ever did before. to try to stop this. So he came out, and what he did, he came out with us, with and interviewed me. And what he wanted to do was show the Alaska Peninsula ecosystem intact in its most beautiful majesty. And so I donated a lot of footage to him of beautiful scenes with bears, and explained to him why bears are important and stuff. And then, so he did that in the beginning to kind of capture the audience and say, wow, that's something else. That's a magic place. And then he went into, this is what they want to do to it. And so it was awesome. So that's just by letting these bears speak up for themselves, by going out there, building this relationship with them. Yeah, they're wild animals, and maybe we should leave them alone. But in my opinion, what we do out there with them is the best thing. And this is the ultimate example of an umbrella species taking care of themselves and everything below them. So that's it. If you don't know what the pebble mine is, learn about it. It cannot happen. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the trip a little bit. I'm going to do what I normally do, and but the most common question I get: when should we go? When's the best time to go? And the answer is not. There's not a best time to go. Every time you go is going to be totally different and equally as amazing, just for different reasons. So, I guide in June and July. I used to guide the whole season from the beginning all the way till late September. But I go to Borneo now in the late summer, and I'll let the other guides, well, the other guides also, but I got in the beginning, and the reasons that I think June are amazing is brilliant green in the spring. There's mating season, clamming, the cubs are tiny, the backdrops are snowier, and the bears all have their gorgeous winter coats. And in July, more cubs show up. They're not as tiny, but there's more of them. It's a mellow month weather-wise. It's going to be salmon starting up sometime in July. Nobody knows when, because every year is different. And then the beautiful flowers. August is strictly fishing, and then September also strictly fishing. You get the weather's colder and a little rainier sometimes, but you get a low-angle sun, which is great for photography, and nicer light. Bears are again in their winter coats, which is gorgeous. And you do get a little bit of start and fall color. So this is in June. This is just us on I think my first day I hit the beach, and they're in the green. There's Ann, destination manager, come out, and got to see some June magic. No, there's no salmon in sight, but we had an awesome trip. And I got some of my favorite pictures I've ever taken, like this one right here. Just snowy backdrop mountains, tiny, tiny spring cubs. They're the cutest little guys you've ever seen, and the mother in a beautiful winter coat out there on the flats looking for clams. The backdrops, especially at the beginning of the season, we operate more in the south end of the park, north end of the park. They got the biggest volcanoes in the background. This is the Devil's Desk. It's an active volcano. It's just awesome. And yeah, so yeah, the bears dig clams. They search around for the intertidal stuff. The moms will bring their cubs down and teach them how, one of the many ways to find calories in this place, by being so opportunistic, digging clams into the sand, something that you can never do with your hands, and being able to do pretty well on it, actually. Yeah. And of course, there's nap time, and when the mom's digging clams, the cubs are always just joking around, being goofballs, making people laugh, making people fall in love. They flip rocks over to get these things called blimmy fish. So I think that's the fascinating thing. When the salmon are there, they're salmon, salmon, salmon. But when they're not there, you get to see all the other ways bears make a living, and how smart they are, and how resourceful they are. Checking the intertidal pools for stranded flounder. If a whale washes up, they'll come in from 30, 40 miles around. They'll be able to smell it and eat the blubber of the whale, which is an awesome thing to see. Yeah, and just being with them, hanging out, watching them joke around, play with mom, snuggle, sleep, nurse. Yeah, I'll let that picture speak for itself. Yep, the cubs, mothers and cubs. There's nothing quite like it. There's a cub tickling mom's feet, and she's taking a nap after clamming hard for a few hours in low tide. And there's a bear with a gorgeous backdrop of the Devil's Desk volcano and munching on some seagrass. On the other side of the berm is what they eat and what draws them in when it's not low tide. And it's these extremely rich sedge grass. It's not grass, it's a sedge. It's very easily digestible, unlike a grass, and grows in the intertidal. So it's salt tolerant and really high in protein, and the bears love it. And brings them in big numbers. So this is a lot of the stuff we do. At low tide, we're out on the flats, and then at high tide, we're in the meadows with these guys, just getting stunning portraits and cool, intimate moments of bears being pretty laid back. And yeah, I mean, just very unique pictures of bears in their winter coats with a gorgeous green. And the bears, if there was one main reason to come to this area, it's because these bears, and when I said there's bears, that are the bears different, I mean, they are different in that they are the most beautiful. These specific bears in this specific area are absolutely stunningly gorgeous. I cannot get over it, how beautiful they are. They're just like the supermodels of the bears. These beautiful blonde females with the shaggy winter coats. It's just as spectacular as any animal on the planet. It's fantastic. The most beautiful bears in the world. And when in June, they're the most beautiful because they got their winter coats on. June's also mating season, so there's some bear romance. I won't get too deep into it, but there's really complex, very, very fascinating behaviors. When the bears are mating season, it's very competitive. So the males are having to charm the females, and the females are selective to the biggest, also most charming males. And the monsters show up, and they've got high levels of testosterone that time of year. So although they don't care about us, they ignore us. They are some really impressive animals when they're charged up with hormones, going after these females, and then also fighting. That's where all those scars are from, is fighting over females. And we do sometimes see these battles, which are epic battles. And if you want, you go on my YouTube channel, and I got some bears fighting, big males fighting, and it's impressive. So yeah, so we get to see the romance in the meadow. And then this is Van. He's the biggest bear I've ever seen in my life. I watched him since he was just a teenager. Now he's actually over the hill now. He's had a little too many fights and battles. He's not at the top, but what an awesome bear that guy is. And then, of course, again, with the mothers and cubs, just watching the bond between moms and cubs is fantastic. Mothers will keep the cubs 4 years usually, 3 to 4 years, and just all the learning that goes on, and the affection and the love and the protection. The male bears and wolves will eat the cubs if they can, and then the reason for that is because the cubs are edible. I mean, it's food, and the reason why you never have to control a bear population like you do deer is because they do prey on each other, and they keep their numbers in check, and that's just a natural part. And the reason, or the fact that happens, is the reason why these mother bears are so awesome. They're evolved to be just the ultimate warrior to protect their babies, and that's something that's very inspiring. So yeah, these guys are not in the rivers constantly this time of year. They're just playing around in the meadow while mom eats, and that's an awesome time to watch them just be laid back. And as mating season goes away, more of the mothers and cubs will show up. So if you go during a mating season, you'll see some moms and cubs. You also see mating season, which is some of the most fascinating behaviors in the animal world, watching bears mating season. As that trails off, you get more mothers and cubs doing their thing. That's one of my new ones from this last year. She was just standing up to see what was over the grass. She just happened to put her hands up, and just watching those cubs, just everything, whatever mom says, she's the queen. She's going to protect them, feed them, teach them. And those guys are cute as can be. These are spring cubs, and they're 6 months old. This is a second summer cub. The females, yeah, they go through kind of a routine, and there's napping involved, and there's going to be a lot of grazing on these sedges involved. Then there's always going to be nursing around the corner. And then playtime. So if you spend a couple hours with them, you'll see all of it. And the nursing and the playing is definitely the best. And mothers will play with their cubs because that's a way for them to teach their cubs how to use their body, and that teach them the fighting skills they need. Mothers will play with the cubs. The cubs are constantly playing together. And it's as entertaining as anything. And that play behavior is really important to teach them how to fight, and it goes on up into their teenage years. Teaching them the skills they need to fight for females if you're a male, to protect your cubs if you're a female, and to fight over food. No bear share. You gotta fight for whatever you get. So as July rolls around, and it gets later into July, you get the very famous fireweed. And the bears are still in the meadow doing their stuff. So if you're real lucky, sometimes you can get bears in some snow-capped mountains and some of that gorgeous magenta fireweed. And it comes out. It's just so pretty, it's hard to even look at sometimes. Sometime in July, the salmon will begin to come in, depending on the tides and the weather and the river levels and the temperature and everything else, and just the random cycles of the salmon. But they do come in. Sometime in July, they'll come in, and there'll be maybe a week in July, there'll be some fishing, and then the next week there won't. So you can't predict it. If you're lucky, you're lucky, but you're always going to see awesome stuff in July anyway. And I don't really have to explain at all why watching bears catch salmon is cool. It's like watching nature's greatest athlete perform. The quickness, the agility, the speed, the skill, and just to watch something such an iconic thing. This is why there's so many bears in Alaska. This is why those bears are so big. It's this influx, explosion of protein that comes in like a miracle from the ocean every year, as long as there's no gold mine at the headwaters that have poisoned it. This is one of the awesome things in nature to see. Salmon eggs squirting out. So yeah, bears catching salmon. This is a bear sitting in a waterfall. She wasn't moving, and this is one of our bays to the south, and so I decided to do a slow exposure and blur the waterfall out, and it's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. Now, we don't go to Brooks Falls, but there are some smaller, there's a couple places where there's some rapids and waterfalls where we go watch these bears catch fish, and just small, intimate, just wilderness areas that we know it like the back of our hands, but the rest of the world never heard of it. And here's an example of the fall colors. It's not like Vermont, but you'll notice the really bright red. That's the fireweed leaves turn red early, so it makes a nice backdrop for pictures. And you can see that soft sun, that low angle light. It's always beautiful. As the bears concentrate on the salmon rivers. And we do see mothers and cubs. So the cubs are bigger, and their business is more serious. They're jumping in for fish and then leaving. It's not like they're in the meadow spending as much time playing and nursing, but they're fishing for salmon. So it's not better. It's just it's obviously just different. And all I can say is, once you can pick one, and probably and then you're just going to want to come back. This is what happens if you come before the salmon. You're gonna be out there and you're gonna just love it, and you're gonna say, I sure would like to see him catch fish. If you come during the best season, like maybe the best week in August, and they're fishing for salmon, and then you look at my pictures that I took in June, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I gotta come back. Look at that. Look at the mothers with the glacier in the background, nursing, playing. So it's just, this trip blows away any other trip in the NatHab catalog for repeat guests. you come once, it's almost like you got to do it again. You got to see the other season. And some people come year after year after year, and they forget about Africa because this is better. Some people think that. There's a lot of fans of this place. Here's a picture from the other guide, my very good friend Drew Hamilton. He's a spectacular photographer, and he's guiding in the late season. So this is when I was in Borneo. These are some of the cool shots that he got. So yes, you still get amazing mothers and cub scenes. This is my friend Justin Gibson, who's a NatHab guide. He got some great shots the last couple of years as well. Just awesome stuff. I mean, you can't beat that. There's a spring cub. There's Drew. Nice work. Bear catching pink salmon. Awesome power of watching these big males go after fish. I mean, it's just like a 1,000-pound animal with the agility of a cat that's going full speed catching these fish in the water. Big, strong fish in deep water. These guys just overpower it. All right, well, that's salmon season. I'm going to just real quickly, I'm kind of running out of time. I'll just show you a couple of the other things that we see. We see some harbor seals. We see a lot of harbor seals actually, and just yeah, you see harbor seals a lot of places. But look at the backdrop. And there's not many places where there's a little harbor seals on the rock with the glaciers in the back and the blue water. It's just gorgeous stuff. We see sea otters in Kodiak or Homer. You'll see sea otters when you do a marine cruise looking for wildlife. And we see them out there as well. This guy got a big tanner crab. Just shot that right off the bow of the Ursus one day. So yeah, and like that blue water because it's glacial rivers coming out of there. So it's got the water is gorgeous. And wolves, yeah, I never want to build up expectations. You're not going on this trip to see wolves. It's an added bonus, but we do pretty well with wolves. Pretty awesome actually. And every year is different, and you cannot go and be disappointed if you don't see them. But there are a lot of people show up and they're blown away by the wolf encounters that we get. I'm laying on my belly to get a low perspective shot, and this wolf just keys in on me and just comes right up. The wolves, unlike most other places, they just kind of watch the bears, and they know the bears are smart, and they watch how the bears react to people, and then they just deem us not a threat too, in most cases. These are a bear and a wolf sharing a whale carcass. That bear doesn't really want to share too much. There's also some areas in the early part of the summer, well, actually throughout the summer, that have wolf dens. And if we can, every time, it's different places, but we're pretty good at finding where they are, and if there is one accessible. We've seen some pretty amazing stuff with wolves and the pups. If you go to my YouTube channel, I've got maybe 60 videos, but down towards the beginning, I've got some footage of just basically watching the father wolf regurgitate food for the pups and play around at like 30 feet in front of our group. So yeah, I think every year that I can remember, we've had wolf den action. Oh yeah, this is a picture was taken by Richard Barrett, who's a really good friend of mine, been on a lot of trips with myself and also Drew, and has done very well. And he really wanted to get wolves and bears, and we helped pick a time for him, and he went out with Drew on a trip and just nailed it. So if you ever see that wildandwonderful.org, if you like wildlife photography, you won't get any better than his collection. And he's a conservationist, and he donates lots of money to World Wildlife Fund, and donates pictures to him. And he's a special guy, and he really deserved the trip that he got. He did 2 back-to-back trips in August, and these are July wolf pups. And yeah, in the later part of the year, depending on the year and the wolves. I mean, wolves, it's harder to predict, but many times we get lucky. There's Richard's ultimate shot of a wolf carrying a salmon. And the wolves do go after salmon. They watch the bears and they clean up scraps from the bears, but they also just study how the bears fish, and then they're not as good at fishing as the bears by any stretch, but they can get salmon. And yeah, and you can come away with pictures that blows anybody away. I mean, you can't even imagine. Richard got some amazing stuff. Not just Richard. Look at Drew. That's something else. I mean, what a shot there. It's artistic. I just love that shot. Justin got an amazing shot last summer. The wolf getting out of the water down in the southern parts of the bay in August, September. Look at that. Nice job, Justin. That is something else. I mean, coolest shot I've shown on the whole webinar. We don't see moose very often, but they're there, and we do get lucky sometimes. The moose are a little bit shy, but kind of low density. It's not great habitat for them, but the ones that are there get huge. And some red foxes out there also, all part of the ecosystem, doing what the bears do, living on the ocean, living on what the ocean provides for them. There's an old scanned-in picture from many years ago of Wolverine. I've probably seen 10 Wolverines in my life of all my travels in the north, and all of them have been on the Katmal coast. But again, you got to be real lucky. But it just shows that they're out there. And some birds. It's not the best birding trip, but we do get some really cool birds like these oyster catchers, and like the bears and the wolves. Not really afraid of people. Like, sometimes if we're lucky, if we find the nesting pair, we can just watch them feed the chicks. Not many places in the world you can do that. It's kind of like the Galapagos. Depends on the time of year, but we got a couple puffin rookeries that we visit, and of course bald eagles. I don't even have to say that, but bald eagles, you can see bald eagles in Homer and Kodiak anywhere in Alaska, but a lot of times not with backdrop like that. So we do. Everybody wants to get good eagle shots when they go to Alaska, and we usually do not disappoint. In marine wildlife, it's dull porpoises, and we don't see so many whales out there. Occasionally orcas, occasionally this and that, but in Kodiak and Homer on those marine cruises, sometimes it can be phenomenal. I mean, unbelievable, like the best whale experiences you'll ever have, but not always. It just depends. So if you want to see more, I've got a YouTube channel with a whole bunch of videos of wildlife, and some pretty interesting stuff. Like I guided the BBC film crew for 2 months to do a show called The Great Bear Stakeout, and I do a little tour through camp to show how we camp out in grizzly countries. It's interesting stuff, but I got wolf footage, bear footage, stuff from Borneo, China, everything in there. So it's just search Brad Josephs on YouTube and it'll come up, my full name. And then I've got years and years and years and years of articles I've written about once a week on everything from sun bears of Borneo, conservation issues, trips I do, polar bears, everything, and they're all in categories. So if you want to do more reading and see some more pictures and learn more about it, I can't fit everything in Katmal on just a 45-minute webinar, but. And that's my last slide. I just want to say thank you. This is Chris Sherman's picture. It's always going to be my last picture from the webinar because it's the ultimate shot. It was a client or a traveler on my trip, and I took this picture, this spring cub waving at us, and it's just you just can't beat it. So that's the last one. And yeah, if you guys got any questions.
Thank you, Brad. This is Lee. Yep, we've got a couple questions, and then we'll wrap it up. If anyone is not able to stick with us, we will be sending the replay out, so you can pick up whatever you miss if you need to leave. But a couple questions for you, photography questions. There is a question about whether it's necessary to bring a very long lens, like a 500 millimeter plus lens.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not necessary, but having at least a 400, it's worth it. Bring what you think you comfortably can carry. You're always going to get the best pictures with the big lens. You don't always need it. The lens that I shot almost all those with was a 70 to 200. 70 to 200 Canon 2.8. A lot of times I wish I had a 1-400. That's a great lens to carry. You can do really well with that. And then some, of course, people will rent the big ones. And I can't. I don't carry the big guys, and if I did, I would just blow away with the pictures. But my job is to guide the trip, and so I can take out my 7D with the 7200 and get some shots every once in a while. But my job is to help people with their cameras. My job is not, you don't follow me around while I take pictures. You know, I get some pictures, but if I had a bigger lens, I would do better. But I can't afford it, and some people don't want to have to carry it around. I mean, this trip is you have to be agile enough to be able to walk through meadows and mud and sand and over logs and places with no trails, and every day, every minute is different. And I can't say, well, you know, this is the trail we go on and it's going to be this difficult and this long. I have no idea. I go to where my group can get to where the bears are going to be the best. So it's not trekking in the Himalayas. You don't have to be in great shape, but you have to be able to have enough balance and be able to walk a few miles through uneven territory and terrain. And if doing that with a huge lens isn't possible, then it shouldn't be. But if you have a big lens, sometimes you're going to be glad you brought it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Actually, my next question was about how agile you have to be, so I'm glad you addressed that. So let me just ask you about group size. What's the typical group size?
The max is 8.
All right, thank you. And back to photography, a question about whether one should bring a tripod or monopod.
You know, it just depends on how big your lens is. I don't use one because I can handhold my camera very easily. But if I brought a very big lens, I would need it. So, yeah, I guess it just depends on how big your lens is and stuff. And if you got a 1-400 and you're got a pretty steady hand, you're not going to need it. If you've got a 500 f4 and it's giant, you have to have it. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop there and turn it back over to you for anything else you'd like to share before we close.
Thank you, guys. If you know, if you got a lot more questions, remember, I've done this webinar probably 5 times. You can go back to old ones on NatHab's YouTube channel and listen to more. Let me describe more things. I try to make it a little different every year. The website's got lots of information. And you can always look me up and shoot me an email if you have a specific question too. But thanks for listening and having the interest. And that's really what it's all about, is people getting excited about these animals so that we as a society, you know, keep them around because they're amazing and they deserve it. And if you're lucky enough, maybe you can see it for yourself. Anyway, yeah, that's about it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brad. It's always a pleasure having you, being able to listen to you. So with that, we will say good day to everyone and conclude the webinar. Goodbye.